When a dedicated dentist like Dr. Spencer Tepe doesn't show up for work, people notice. On the morning of December 30th, 2025, his absence was so jarring that a concerned colleague decided to check in on him. What they would uncover would send a shockwave of horror through the Columbus, Ohio community. Inside the Tepe family home, police discovered an unimaginable scene. Spencer and his wife, Monique, shot to death. But that wasn't even the most chilling part. Upstairs, their two toddlers, just 1 and 4 years old, were found alive. They were physically unharmed but had spent hours alone with their murdered parents. With no signs of a break-in and no weapon at the scene, investigators were left with a terrifying question. Who would commit such a brutal act, only to leave two small children behind in a house of horrors? To truly grasp the weight of this loss, you have to know who Spencer and Monique Tepe were. This wasn't just a headline. It was a violent end to a beautiful life that had built together. Spencer, 37, and Monique, 39, were all by all accounts an extraordinary couple whose lives revolved around love, joy, and family. They had married in their home in 2021 and were just a month away from their 5th wedding anniversary. That home in the Wineland Park neighborhood was filled with the sounds of their two young children, a life they absolutely cherished. Spencer was a graduate of the Ohio State University and a successful dentist at the Athens Dental Depot, about 75 miles from Columbus. He was known for being so reliable that his failure to show up for work on December 30th was the first alarm bell in a day that would end in tragedy. Friends and family described him as someone who lived with energy and immense generosity, a huge fan of the Bengals and Buckeyes, who was also deeply committed to his community. Fluent in Spanish, he was dedicated to serving others, a man whose warmth was felt by everyone he met. Monique, with a background in childhood education, was the heart of the family. A family statement painted her as a loving, patient, and joyful mother whose warmth defined her. She was the anchor of their home, the patient guide for their two small children. Together, Spencer and Monique shared what their family called a beautiful, strong, and deeply happy relationship. They loved to travel, to laugh, and to build a life firmly rooted in love. The photos they leave behind show a vibrant, smiling family, the kind you see and hope to have for yourself. They were the last people anyone could imagine becoming victims of such a heinous crime. The horror of that morning unfolded through a series of frantic 911 calls. It started around 10 a.m. when Dr. Mark Valrose, the owner of the dental practice where Spencer worked, called 911. Spencer was always on time, always in touch. His silence was deafening. Around the same time, another worried co-worker went to the house. At 9:57 a.m., they placed their own 911 call, reporting the sound of children crying inside but getting no answer at the door. The sense of dread was escalating with every minute. Just a few minutes later, at 10:03 a.m., a third 911 call came in from a friend who had also gone to perform a wellness check. The words from that call are bone-chilling. There's a body inside. Our friend wasn't answering his phone. We just came here and he appears dead. When Columbus police arrived, they confirmed the friend's worst fears. Spencer and Monique Tepe were both dead. Autopsy records would later show that Spencer had been shot multiple times, while Monique had at least one gunshot wound to her chest. The scene was an immediate and baffling puzzle. There was no obvious signs of forced entry, which suggested the killer may have been let in or had a key. Critically, the murder weapon was nowhere to be found. This detail, combined with the fact that the children were left unharmed, led police to quickly rule out a murder take themselves out. This wasn't a tragedy that imploded from within. It was an invasion, an execution. Investigators immediately began canvassing the Wineland Park neighborhood. Ironically, just a few hundred feet from a police crime camera positioned on a utility pole, they were desperate for answers. pleading with residents for any video footage, photos, or digital evidence from between midnight and 9 a.m. on December 30th. The timeline was critical. Who came and went from that house during those dark, early morning hours? Who was the last person to see Spencer and Monique alive, besides their killer? This case is a chilling reminder of how a family's world can be shattered in an instant. The search for justice is on, and even the smallest detail could be the key to solving this. If you believe in-depth coverage like this is important, please consider subscribing to my channel and turning on the notifications. It helps us keep a spotlight on cases that desperately need a voice. With a double homicide and no clear suspect, investigators are forced to explore every possible angle. As CNN senior national security analyst Juliette Kayum pointed out, there are really two broad scenarios that could explain this horrific crime. The first is the kind of thing that terrifies every community. A random act. A stranger at the door who just happens to kill this couple. It's the idea that senseless violence can knock on any door without warning. But the details here seem to push against that theory. The lack of forced entry is a huge piece of the puzzle. It suggests the victims may have known their killer. Did they open the door to someone they trusted? Or did someone already have access to their home? Someone who could come and go without raising an alarm. This points to the second and perhaps more likely scenario. Spencer and Monique were specifically targeted. But that just raises more agonizing questions. Why them? Why this couple? Described by everyone as loving and generous with no known enemies. A targeted killing means there was a motive. Was it personal? Was it connected to Spencer's dental practice? Or was it something else entirely, a part of their lives kept hidden from the public eye? Investigators are no doubt digging into every corner of the Tepe's world. Their finances, their relationships, their personal histories, searching for any conflict that could have ended like this. The fact that the killer left two small children behind is another deeply perplexing element. It's a bizarre and haunting detail in the middle of such brutality. Did the killer not realize the children were there? Or were they intentionally left alive? And if so, what does that tell us about their mindset? These are the questions that haunt investigators and the community alike. Without a suspect or a murder weapon, the case remains a vacuum of information, filled only with speculation and grief. Police are holding out hope that digital evidence from the neighborhood will provide the breakthrough they need. A car on a security camera, a figure walking down the street in the dead of night. Until then, the why is as elusive as the who. In the wake of this tragedy, the most immediate heart-wrenching concern was for the two TP children. Found alone in the home, they were mercifully safe and are now in the care of relatives. Shielded from the media storm that has followed, they are the living legacy of Spencer and Monique. A constant, beautiful reminder of the life that was so violently stolen. The road ahead for them will be unimaginable hard, growing up without the parents who, by all accounts, simply adored them. On January 2nd of 2026, the grieving TP family released their first public statement. Their words were a testament to their heartbreak, but also to their strength. "We are heartbroken beyond words," the statement read. "While no outcome can ever undo this loss, our family is committed to seeing this tragedy fully and fairly brought to justice, and to honoring Spencer and Monique by protecting the future of the children they loved so deeply." It was a powerful plea for justice and a promise to protect the two little ones who had lost everything. The family statement also reinforced who this couple was, emphasizing that Spencer and Monique were extraordinary people whose lives were filled with love, joy, and a deep connection to others. For a community grappling with such a senseless act, these reminders are essential. They turn the case from a cold police file back into what is a devastating human tragedy. The Franklin County Coroner's Office had indicated that full autopsy reports could take 8 to 10 weeks. An agonizing wait for a family desperate for answers. As of early January 2026, no suspect has been named in the murders of Spencer and Monique TP. The investigation remains active and ongoing. Columbus police continue to appeal to the public for help, specifically for any video or digital evidence from the Wineland Park neighborhood on the night of the murders. This case may very well hinge on the hope that someone saw something. That a single frame of video holds the key to identifying the person who walked into Tepe home and destroyed a family. The story of Spencer and Monique Tepe is heartbreaking. Chronicle of a life well lived and a love brutally cut short. They were parents, partners, professionals, and cherished members of their community. Their legacy now lives on in their two young children, surrounded by a family committed to honoring their memory. The path to justice may be a long one, but for the sake of those children and for the memory of the love their parents represented, it's a path that must be walked to the very end. If you have any information regarding the murders of Spencer and Monique Tepe, please contact the Columbus Police Homicide Unit. Even the smallest tip could be what's needed to bring a killer to justice and offer some measure of peace to a family that has lost everything. Thank you for watching.